Hello, whoever's here. There's three. Oh, good.
There we go. I had to reload.
It's going to be the same group, but the difference is it's going to be recorded now. So right now it's recording.
Yeah. Who has more than one tab open?
Not me.
And here comes Lou.
Hi, I'm back.
So the concept of this is, there's at least one other person coming in. Might be, yeah. Hi, if there's someone else there who wants to participate, please turn on your camera. Oh, yeah, it looks like Sarah just said in the session, me? So, yeah, Sarah, turn on the camera. This is more of a discussion, kind of like a breakout room and less like, I mean, you can lurk if you want, but the whole goal here is for people to talk to each other.
Well, Sarah, I've never seen your face. But I super recognize your last name because I used to do data processing with it all the time.
Yeah, same with you. Same. Nice to put a face to the name.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll kind of kick this off, and it's not as formal as a stage presentation. We can all talk in real time, but Claudia and I were just kind of back channeling, chatting about WhatsApp and how great it is. And I'm kind of a new convert to WhatsApp. And so because I've talked to a lot of people in South America in particular, Latin America, and all over the world, I know that it's much more used than it is in North America. So really the goal is for Claudia to share all of her secret tricks with me, but we're turning into an intercultural dialogue. We're both going to probably share a little bit about the differences between how North Americans use it and how South Americans use it, and see maybe we can learn something from each other, or maybe produce in kind of an interesting dialogue that way. So Claudia, do you want to introduce yourself so everyone knows who you are?
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. So my name is Claudia Soliz. I am from La Paz, Bolivia. I work at Education USA as an advisor, which is a program from the State Department where we promote higher education in the United States. So we help students try to study in the United States for undergrad or graduate programs. I guess this conversation comes up also as a result that I lived in the US for 8 years. I did my undergrad and my graduate studies in the US. And now I came back, and it's very interesting to see the culture clash. Perhaps when in the US, I was very like email-based communication, and then I got to Bolivia and everything was WhatsApp. Like I have so many groups, and I think that's where me and Patrick were talking about the differences in how we communicate and whatnot. So my graduate degree was on Latin American Studies at Georgetown University. So yeah.
And I'm just jumping in because somebody else is viewing right now. So if there's another person here who wants to participate, please turn on your camera so you can participate in the discussion.
So
this
Patrick,
is meant to be, yeah.
Patrick, I have 5 participants and 3 viewing. I'm not sure why it's not counting the participants in the viewing.
Now we have 7. So I'm not sure either, Santi. I see different things in different places, but it's, basically I see 2 people who are not showing their camera. We'd love to have you join the conversation. So please turn on your camera. Oh, it's Wendy. Wendy only wants to listen, as you can see in the session chat. So she just wants to hear what we're going to talk about and how it goes. So that's just fine. There is another person. If you want to lurk on the side, feel free to interact through the chat. That's absolutely fine. It's more fun in these sessions where we can all talk to each other a little bit. And just because it is, and sorry, I had just cut you off, Claudia, and hopefully Santiago comes back too. Please continue. You said, I think Latin American Studies is what you said.
Oh yeah. So I did my my graduate on Latin American Studies, and yeah, I love anything that is related to Latin America. Very social science girl over here.
Awesome. Well, I'll introduce myself briefly as well, and since it's more of a session, we get the chance to hear from all of us and not just sages on the stages kind of situation. But my name's Patrick. I'm program director for People, Places, Things. I was an English teacher for a while, and then I started listening to my students, mostly immigrants and refugees here, and they were telling me that they wanted English, but they didn't the nouns and verbs and the grammar part wasn't really resonating with them. They had real needs that they needed to address with their English. They needed to get childcare. They needed to get a driver's license. They wanted to start a business. They wanted to talk to the teachers, and they recognized that not only could they not really go to Monday, Tuesday, Thursday from 9 to noon, and they didn't have the money for that either, but that also wasn't addressing their actual needs. So there's a strong culture of community-based ESL classes for immigrants and refugees. And about 10 years ago, I decided I wanted to provide support to these programs with training, curriculum materials, and just try to make awesome free ESL classes. That's kind of where it started. It branched out a little bit more. I'm here in Portland, Oregon. It's been smoky for the last week, but it's raining a little bit, so it's getting a little better. Luciana, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Well, my name is Luciana Bolivian. I'm from La Paz, Bolivia, too. Participated last year on an exchange program that it was me going to a camp, and I pretty much like to so I like to be involved in this kind of stuff where I can like learn and know how I can try to travel more.
Yeah. Santi, you winked out. Hopefully, are you there still? Maybe having some trouble over there. Oh,
Super here.
Okay. Santi, do you want to introduce yourself, or should we have Sarah do it herself first?
Oh, I don't want
Go
to
ahead.
introduce myself.
Okay.
Someone,
Sarah,
either you or Sarah can introduce me.
Okay, that sounds fine. Sarah, can you introduce yourself and then introduce Santiago if you want?
Okay. My name is Sarah Moliner. I recently graduated with my master's degree in teaching English to speakers of other languages. I had the opportunity to do my practicum hours with Patrik and all the lovely people at People, Places, Things. Just went through the first level, but now a few years later, working on the first level of the Proficiency Navigator side of things through ESL Companions. Plus doing some one-on-one teaching through the Footbridge program. So working with some of the Ciudad Mundo students at this time and really enjoying it. Let's see. I think that covered everything. I actually don't have the privilege of knowing Santiago super well. He was the person who emailed me and asked me about my classes when I was working with PPT. So Patrik, I might let you do that part.
All right. Santi, none of us know you well enough to introduce you. I think you're going to have to introduce yourself. Actually, Luciana probably knows you better than anyone now.
That's my problem. That's why I don't want to.
48 hours together.
That's why I don't want to introduce myself well enough to introduce myself.
Oh, come on. Come on.
Come on, Santi, tell us who you are.
Well, Santiago is one of the best English speakers who speak Spanish that I know. Santiago is a friend of mine. We've known each other for about 6 years, and Santiago really likes languages a lot, just like me, and also has a strong social justice motivation, and so we resonate in a lot of areas. Santiago likes to tell me that I'm wrong about things, and we should just be very clear. Santiago's Spanish is better than mine, but we agree that my English is better than Santi's.
Now, that's not what we agreed on, Patrik.
That is what we agreed on.
No, we agreed that you know more book English than I do, and I know more street English than you do.
I don't agree with that.
Hey,
We agreed to agree. We didn't.
Anyway, now you know a little bit about us and how our kind of friendship is. Unless anyone wants to say anything else, I'm in facilitator mode. Claudia, do you want to share with us? I think you said you were going to make a presentation. Did you decide to do that?
Yeah, I was unable to because one of my boss, Marcelo, told me to do other things. We're having an English exam tomorrow, and I had to go to presentation. But I did, prepare some notes that I wanted to share with people that maybe are not so familiar with WhatsApp and whatnot. So I would say the thing with WhatsApp is, at least for me, is very interesting. Living in the United States, I was very like attached to my WhatsApp because it was my main way of communication with my family and whatnot. Like it really was my line to Bolivia in a way. That's where I had all my Bolivia contacts and whatnot. Um, but I started also using it with my friends because they started realizing when you text, I would never text back, right? Because for me, texting was through WhatsApp and WhatsApp only. So a lot of my friends started using WhatsApp, but I noticed that it wasn't so common for them. Um, but then I realized, among the international students, not just from Bolivia, but really from all over the world, WhatsApp was really the way to keep in touch with family, and it became more and more common. Now, when I was in the US, it was common for me, just to keep in touch. But now that I've moved back to Bolivia, it really has opened up a whole new world of possibilities and what you can do with WhatsApp, especially professionally. I've come to realize, that WhatsApp, at least here in Latin America, is way more a very effective mean of communication, more so than email, right? So I feel emails here in Bolivia and probably most of Latin America are very intimidating, right? Because like you have to type it out, like grammar, so many things. And I noticed, like, even when I teach classes at a university, even my students, even MBA students, would not know how to like write a good email, with the header, like not the header, the introduction, the body. It was very messy, and I was like, wow, I really need to give a class on how to write an email. And because of this, I found out, email culture is intimidating and is not very accessible to many people, even though everyone has to have nowadays an
Uh-oh.
account and whatnot.
It's possible that's me. Hold on.
Here twice now.
I know. That's what I'm doing over here because I'm going to share my screen, but sorry, I'm trying to cut off my phone. Or
Don't worry. Is it good?
keep on going.
Okay. But yeah, so I started realizing this email culture thing and whatnot, and that's one of the things where I started implementing WhatsApp in what I do, like, because I realized students, at least for the classes that I gave for this MBA English class that I taught, if I implement WhatsApp, students feel less intimidated and are more likely to actually come to me with questions, right? And I started realizing that for people here, WhatsApp is not just like an informal way of communicating, but it's also a formal way and a professional way to communicate as well, right? And so very, very important. I feel like for anyone that's working maybe with people that are like from abroad, or if you want to talk with Latin Americans, I would say that a better way of communication will be WhatsApp rather than email. And that's something that I noticed because even though like after living 8 years in the US, I developed a very strong email culture. Like I don't check my email that often because my WhatsApp is being inundated with questions and like people from work and whatnot. So I'm definitely more glued to my WhatsApp. And I always tell, when I work with people that are from the US, is like, so you can send me an email, but sometimes I will miss it also because I have 6 emails. But if you send me a WhatsApp, it's all in one and I'm more likely to reply. So in that sense, I think, WhatsApp can be a very useful tool for communications, at least in Latin America. It's been my experience. And then the other thing I want to share is just like, maybe just culture things that are different on how you may use texting services in the US versus in Bolivia, right? So I know in the US it's mostly text. Here in Bolivia, we use a lot of voice notes, for example. I'm a big fan of voice notes. And I've noticed recently, actually, with talking with some of my American friends and whatnot, how weirded out they were by the voice notes because some of them are long, or they were like, why don't you just type that out? And I'm like, because it's easier to just say it and record it. Makes my replying that much faster, right? Yes, Santi.
Oh, I just want to make a distinction between a voicemail when you miss someone and you record something, and being in a conversation in WhatsApp and recording. I don't remember. Patrik might know what they're called because Patrik does them a lot. You can do it in Facebook chat as well, where you record an audio recording, and then you send it. Well, that wouldn't be voicemail in English.
No, voice
No
note.
voice note. She's saying
Oh,
voice note.
Oh, okay,
voice
sorry.
memo. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But there
Yeah,
is, there
very
are-
different concepts, because
Yeah.
voicemail is like, you missed the person, and you it's very different versus, I feel, the voice note, can even be, instead of typing a yes, I might just say yes, 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 and record it and send it, right? It's a 2-second voice note, but sometimes it's faster and easier. Or other times, maybe I have something very complex to explain, and I just send a 4-minute voice note explaining what I want to say. And I would say, like, again, like, I feel a lot of my friends in the US feel like, why are you sending me like such long voice notes? And I'm like, well, they're very comfortable in the sense that it's kind of like having a conversation, but we get to talk to each other whenever we have time, right?
Mhm.
Because I have a lot to say, and I send a voice note at a certain time that the person cannot talk, and I can't, like, we can't find a time to actually sit down and talk over the phone. Then I can just send a voice note, and then that person can listen it whenever they have free time, and then reply with another voice note. So it keeps a nice conversation, and I feel once you get used to it, it can be very, very useful. At least it has been in my job. The other thing is that sometimes, when I have to reply, people are asking me the same question. Like right now, I'm organizing a course on democracy with the U.S. Embassy, and a lot of people are asking me questions. First, what is the course about? I just record a voice note. I'm like, hi, my name is Claudia, and the course that's going to be about this, that, and then I just record it, and I can just resend it and resend it and resend it. And to the students that I am working right now with, at least for them, it feels very like personal, because it's someone talking to you, right? It's not just a pre-written message, although it is a pre-recorded message in a way. It doesn't feel as I don't know, it feels more natural. It feels more like you're talking to a real person, and it works. It saves me so much time. So I feel voice notes, for example, is something that I have rarely seen used in the United States, because I know Instagram and other applications now have it, but people don't use it that much. And for me, it's also a way, to, especially with friends, I would say, to hear each other's voices. And again, sometimes because of time difference, because of schedules, we're not able to coordinate an actual call, right? It takes months to find that time to sit down and have a call over the phone. And versus with voice notes is, it makes it so much easier. And I think even, and that doesn't apply just for informal scenarios, but also for formal ones. For professional environments, for sure, we use them here a lot. I know that with my boss, we're all the time using voice notes. He's like, oh, good morning, how are you? Okay, so these are the things I need to do. Okay, blah, blah. So it's kind of like a conversation, but like a very long period of time, right? So that's one thing that I would say can be very useful to communicate. The other thing is groups. I know that Facebook has this ability to create groups, and it's something that we do a lot here, right? So if you have a group with your office members, where you're constantly checking, sending the documents, and in that sense, I would say it's very similar to email, right? Because you can just send documents, you can send images, and it's just faster because it's on your phone. And I mean, not that you cannot do that on the email on your phone, but people are way more used to WhatsApp than they are to email. So it's so much easier, and like you have all the information in one place, and you just have to go to that chat and look for it. Makes it so much easier. And also, when I'm working again with students, so for example, the course that I'm doing right now with the U.S. Embassy, that's, again, we have a big group, and that's where we send all the information. And depending on how you set up the group, you can even put it in such a way that you can be the moderator in a way that other people cannot comment, because sometimes groups can get annoying. So, it has a lot of like very handy tools that you can use, and that can make it very easy to communicate and share information fast, and for everyone to be on the same page. So that's why, but the not so nice side, I would say, is that sometimes you end up with so many groups. Like right now I have tons of groups from different things, just things that you might be interested in, right? Like I'm interested in, I don't know, vegan food options. And they're like, oh, let me put you in the group for vegan people. And all of a sudden you just receive newsletters and like offers and like activities and all the time, even though you might not be going to all of them. It's kind of like a newsletter that you get on your phone. And sometimes those can get annoying, and sometimes you mute them, or sometimes you just leave the group. But in other cases, they can be really informative. And, I know I have some with friends or acquaintances that have a specific political view, and I get a lot of my news from there. and other groups that are just created for like an event. Maybe like for something like this, I would have created a WhatsApp group just for everyone to be on the same page. And then once the event is over, then you close the group, right? Or maybe you keep it there if you want to work in the future. So in that sense, I think WhatsApp is very handy, very useful, and can definitely make communication that much easier with people from Latin America. So yeah, I mean, I guess those were some of my points.
Yeah, I want to respond to a couple and then invite some specific commentary about my own experience. And a little bit later, I really want to hear more about how you specifically do that in professional settings. There's also a business WhatsApp for business, which is like brand new to me. And Wendy was the first person to show me about that. And I'm like, oh, dang, like, what's that? But I wanted to comment on the voice notes thing. And this will be a good touchstone for other North Americans as well. So, I mean, I hate voice notes, but just to validate your assumption about that. But I'll tell you why. I think there's an interesting cultural reason for it. And there's a few dynamics. I think, like you mentioned, Claudia, when people are busy and there's no time to coordinate a phone call, there's that. But there's also kind of like the prepaid voice culture and a lot of other things about cellular and telephone service in Latin America and around the world, where you kind of have to pay for every single like phone call you make, depending on where you are. And so by using WhatsApp, especially if you're connected to Wi-Fi, you can essentially avoid having to pay for, you need to have your data minutes. You might not need a data card or something like that. But if you just get a data card, you can kind of like send voice notes back and forth, and then you can hear each other's voices. Whereas almost every, North American has a cellular plan, so we just call each other, it's not gonna, in fact, we usually have a certain number of minutes to use anyway. So we might as well just call each other. And your experience might be different. Please correct me on that, because I'm talking mostly from hanging out in Venezuela for a while, where people would literally, to make a phone call, they would go, or even a text, they would go to a phone kiosco and pay like, 1,000 bolivares, and then make a phone call. And the way that they made money off of it there is that they'd have a whole bunch of phones hanging from a little phone tree, because it's free to make calls between the same cellular company. So you pay them like $1, and then that's free money for them, because they already have an account set up with all the different accounts, and they just pick right. And Wendy's saying we even have to pay for texting. So every single thing costs money, whereas, I mean, it's the same in the US, except you pay a bigger chunk of money for a whole bunch of stuff, rather than like paying for every single little thing. So even it becomes annoying to even pay for every single little thing. So maybe, Claudia, is it kind of true that like people just get a data plan and they skip getting voice plans, and they just have data? Yeah.
It's become much more useful, right? I think your data plan can go farther than maybe just limiting your minutes or your text messages. And I know that for me was hard to get used to, because when I was in the US, as you mentioned, I had like this plan, like a $60 a month plan, and I had unlimited minutes, unlimited calls, and like a limited amount of data. But the calls made it that much easier that I would never have to worry about how much money am I spending? Do I have enough money to make a call? I should make this quick, right? So that was not something I had to think about in the US. But then I got here, and it was like, going back to the charging a card and like getting my money inside of my phone and how much money I had left and whatnot. So it made it very different until I got a plan. Those are not so accessible, right? Plans here, this type of plans are not accessible really for the majority of people. So versus WhatsApp, it's easier, and they've made it easier. The cellular companies have made it easier for you to buy a package. So you just pay 10 Bolivianos, and for 2 weeks you have unlimited data. I don't know. So it works like that, right? So it makes it much easier. And if you're connected to Wi-Fi, right? So now everything is through WhatsApp, even calls, phone calls. I don't think people call through phone anymore. They call you through WhatsApp always, even if they have pay like plans, right? I still prefer to call by my phone because sometimes it's clearer and doesn't depend on the Wi-Fi signal from me or the other person, and that's where I find kind of like annoying. But I've noticed people don't use their phones anymore as phones. That's not their primary function anymore. It's to access internet, right? Since WhatsApp has been, has democratized many of these things, and I think it has been positive. But again, we're very dependent on WhatsApp. I would say Facebook is the largest social media, and WhatsApp shouldn't be considered social media. It's not necessarily social media, but for us, it kind of is. And it's this, I would say it's probably as larger as Facebook used in Latin America, probably larger, right? Like you have to have WhatsApp. If not, you're missing out on so many things. And even businesses wise, like everywhere now they have the WhatsApp logo and the phone number, right? Because it's easier to reach that way. And, whenever you have your data or your megas, right, that you're able to just send a message, a quick message, a voice note even. But yeah, so no, I totally agree with the price thing and the way like cellular plans work here versus in the United States being a big factor as to why WhatsApp is way more popular here.
And I that's what I love about intercultural conversations like this. One little difference that's like, why do they do that? Can actually reveal entire systems of ways of thinking, of ways of being in society, and definitely of inequality and the way capitalism works. I mean, it's all it's like fractal. Every cultural difference contains every other cultural difference in it. And as you learn to move throughout the world, you learn to like shift your way of thinking and being actually, and how you even are, as you incorporate this new reality and you kind of take on this different shape. And and so a couple other things that, I mean, just the voice note thing has like 6 different layers in it. So I want to share my first experience with voice notes. I was in Cancun, working with a woman, amazing lady, Carolina Labastida, and she did a teacher training program, and she worked for Politecnica in Cancun. And I just loved her style. And so I reached out to her one time and we made a plan, and I started trying to make a business relationship happen. We became friends. The business part didn't work out, but I was visiting her and we were trying to work on a good plan. And she and the father of her daughter were separated. And so I saw them, I already kind of had internalized the sort of like, it costs money for every phone call kind of a thing. And we lived in a house where she had a router, so there was data already there. And so her daughter was communicating with her father through sending voice notes back and forth. And it was like a way for them to stay in contact all the time. And then when there was energy around something, then there would be a bunch of voice notes going back and forth, and it would kind of taper off. And then maybe 3 days later, there'd be a little bit like, te amo, papi, like just throwing that out. And it was just like a way to kind of like stay involved in your net of communications. That really just, again, just underlining everything that Claudia was just saying, but kind of putting it in North American framework so to understand how that works, so that you're always with your family. It's the same way we kind of use Facebook a lot around here. And I know that Facebook is used very similarly throughout Latin America as well. I started off by kind of provocatively saying that I hate the voice notes. I don't actually. There are times when it's a lot easier, like you say, to just explain what I want. But part of my problem is that I usually need to copy that text to go somewhere else. So like I might need to send that information to somewhere, or I need to search it later. And so it's the fact that I can't search the voice notes that really hangs me up. Because if I'm doing it for business, sometimes I'm like, oh crap, what did they say? How are we supposed to be doing that again? And there's just no way I can stop and like listen to all those voice notes, because there's no tag on that tells you what that voice note is about. So sometimes I will find a way to play that out or transcribe it so that I have the note into WhatsApp, because if I'm going to listen to it once, I never want to have to listen to it again. I want to be able to read it. Plus, we're always driving around here, right? And that's another cultural dimension that, I mean, people definitely drive throughout Latin America, but not like in the United States. And so I want to be able to look at my phone and read it, not listen to it or speak it. I want to be able to see it. So there's a couple of layers there. Santi, you're wanting to comment.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember, Claudia. In WhatsApp, can you move the playhead in the audio, or do you have to? Is it only like play and it plays from the beginning.
Oh, you're muted, Claudia. You muted yourself.
Yes, you can. You can change it. You don't have to listen to it entirely, but it's hard to know in which part of the message do they have the information that I need. And
Yeah.
yes, it happens to me a lot.
I think I was having that issue though with voice memos, voice notes on Facebook a couple years ago. So that was one issue that I had with voice notes. But another one related to what Patrick was saying in terms of not being able to copy the text, not being able to search the text, is when it's not in our native language. If there's a word you can't understand, you cannot highlight the word and look it up. And also you can't see it's really hard. That was really hard for me to deal with, being in a cross-cultural relationship and the voice note aspect.
Yeah, no. It definitely is because I mean, first on that note, when you were saying about just not having it typed out and being able to find things, sometimes that happens to me, and I'm like, oh my god, where was that information? And there's a ton of voice note after voice note, and I'm like, where was this? And I have to re-listen until I find it. Sometimes what I do in order to like better organize myself is like after the person has sent me the voice note, I reply back in text, right? Like, okay, great. So we would be doing this, and this just to confirm. And that way I have these keywords and then I know how to find it. So that's a way that I've been using to better locate myself. When you're, I mean, and when you're talking about other languages, and I had never thought about that, to be honest, because I think most of the times when I speak with English speakers, then I'm speaking in English, and I don't think I've had issues with that. And when I speak with Spanish speakers, I just speak in Spanish. But I guess, yeah, I mean, if it can be hard, but at the same time, I would say you're also practicing your listening skills. So it can be an interesting way to exchange, right? Which I kind of want to do with actually would like to implement with my students, because I work with I support some English programs from the USM, for example, and I was thinking it would be great to connect these students with American students and have them exchange experiences. But it's hard again sometimes to find that time that works for everyone. And I was thinking, maybe like instead of pen pals, you can do voice notes, which is practicing a lot of listening skills, because sometimes students only listen to certain type of English in their courses, right? Which is very plain, not real English in a way, in the sense that it's not the one that we use every day, or with idioms and whatnot. And I feel you kind of have to get used to that. And that's what I was saying earlier when I mentioned, with English, really you just get better in pronunciation by listening to it a lot.
Yeah.
So I think it has its pros and its cons for sure. But I would say for me, the one of the pros is that it's very fast and easy for me, instead of writing down and typing down what I want to say to organize myself, especially when I'm having a busy day. But when it's for other things that I know need to be like well written out, that's when my US email culture kicks in, and I send WhatsApp messages like an email, right? Which has been pretty useful, and I feel some people that I've worked with have kind of caught on that, and they're like, oh, okay, and they're replying the same way. So it also depends on how you start the conversation, right? If I want to send a voice note, then they'll likely reply to me in a voice note. But if I start just typing out, then they might start typing out too, because you can always be listening to a voice note too. Like you were saying, maybe you're driving, maybe you're in a meeting and you just want to read it. So sometimes I feel those are cues that you can tell the other person, I'd rather not do this. If you just start typing, then the other person will get it, and it's like, okay, I'll stop sending voice notes. Unconsciously, they don't even do it consciously, right? So just something.
So yeah, so great. There's so I want to kind of move it into like how I got converted to WhatsApp, because it's related to where everyone is going. In fact, Claudia, you were talking about language learning, but just to tie up that part, one of the things that I tend to do, which is kind of related to what Santi was talking about earlier, is instead of recording an audio message, I'll tend to use the voice to text feature and just press that microphone so that it comes out in text. And even though it's not perfect, Santi hates that sometimes because I send these long text notes and they get the words wrong. And so that also can be annoying to people, but at least it's more searchable that way. So, I mean, again, there's choices to be made all along the way, but I got converted to WhatsApp for a couple of really important reasons, some that we've mentioned, but rather than kind of giving it away, actually, I want to ask Sarah if you would talk a little bit about your experience with how we've been using WhatsApp to coordinate all of our one-on-one language classes recently, because WhatsApp was new for you, wasn't it? Or kind of new?
I mean, I hadn't heard about it until probably 2 or 3 years ago. And I definitely, I was using it very seldomly before I started volunteering with ESL Companions, and then especially more recently with the Footbridge students. And just to go back to the voice memo, Patrick, the other week when you had me send some tax form information via voice memo was the only time I've ever used it. I didn't even know it was a feature. But I did really like it for that purpose, because then it was like, it's not searchable. If someone wants to try to get that information, they have to listen and transcribe it, and we deleted it before there would be that chance. So that was great. But yeah, something I've really enjoyed about it is, like Claudia was saying, it's all in one place. All my students, all my shadowers, everything, it's all in one app. So I'm not, is it in a text? Is it an email? Is it, that part is very nice. I've also really enjoyed the reply feature. So Patrick had to remind me the other week of like, hey, if you have separate questions, could you put them in separate lines so that I can do the reply feature? And I found myself missing that in normal text messages lately. So it's so much easier to see like, oh, which part are they responding to again? So yeah, does that cover it, Patrick?
How are we using it now? Sort of explain a little how it's used.
Well, let's see. So there is the group aspect. So getting informed of the overall, like what's our focus this week for the lessons, sharing our reports after class. That's sort of the group setting. When it comes to actually students, yeah, it can be a good place where we're doing a lot of the scheduling, but also sometimes sending documents after class. And then, of course, coordinating with you, Patrick, of what students are available to work with, or I guess scheduling type things as well.
Yeah, and I would add to that one of the things that makes WhatsApp more responsive is the fact that when you go into someone's chat, you can see the last time they connected, and you can see when they have received the message and when they have read it, right? So that puts pressure on you to reply back. So I feel for scheduling reasons that can be very helpful, just because people, we know when people have received that. You can even get info on the message, on a particular message. If you click on it, you can get info, and you're in a group and you can see who has received it, who has read it, at what time. So, it's like, are they actively ignoring me? Or maybe they haven't read the message, so that gives you a better sense of, oh, they haven't checked their phone since the afternoon. Okay, then maybe I'll just wait, versus, oh, they haven't replied, let me send a reminder. So I feel that's very comfortable and nice, which is not necessarily an integrated part of emails, for example, right? And I feel that in that sense, it's faster and it's more responsive. And because it's chat, it's not necessarily an email chain, it's more informal. So people are like, oh yeah, I can do that. And that nice feature of replying, right? So going back to a question that maybe got lost in all of the answers, and you can just click, oh, replying to this, yes, I can do it, or I can do this time, right? So it makes it much easier and nicer to use.
Sarah, would you mind muting your mic? You're getting a little bit of feedback as we're talking. Thanks. So the conversion happened for me for a couple of reasons. One was that I started doing a lot more international work, and so I wanted to communicate with people. And Facebook, but the thing is that Facebook, is more of an open platform, and WhatsApp has a security feature. So I would say a lot of people in North America, really focus on the fact of security. So there's a lot of discussion about like, oh, WhatsApp is owned by Facebook, bad, but it has peer-to-peer, encryption, good. Signal is better. And so people who are thinking about security think about that a lot. And then Sarah, yeah, you were mentioning about the security piece, because I work with a lot of people who are passing sensitive information, whether they're doing it in text or voice. Actually, it's a more secure way to do it. So the reality became that I could communicate instantly all over the world, in the same way that I was informally communicating with my friends in the U.S. through a text. But my friends in the U.S. didn't use WhatsApp, so I had to switch back and forth. But I also started becoming very accustomed to being able to reply. The key piece for me was when I discovered WhatsApp Web. Oh my God, WhatsApp Web changed my life, and now I don't want to use Facebook ever again. I mean, because of the security, because I can type things out, and I can do all those functions, but I can sit at my computer and receive my texts. I mean, that's what I want all my friends to stop texting me and send it to me on my computer somehow, but there's no way to do that there. A couple of other things too. Like you mentioned, Claudia, having everything under person's name in there, and especially when it's searchable, even if you have to scroll back, a few hundred messages or whatever, at least it's there, like it's there somewhere. Unlike an email where you're like, I don't, somehow things get lost.
Conversation, yeah.
Yeah, somehow they get lost, like a sock gets lost. You somehow it goes to the sock zone. Those communications go there too. But what and then I started also using it with my clients in the Claudia. So it'd be really fun to actually do this a little bit more. I haven't trained our teachers yet who are working with the Bolivian students and our other students how to use voice memos yet in that way. But actually what I do is I'll say a sentence, or maybe it's a word. It depends a little bit on their level. And then I ask them to type it out. So I might say like, I bought a dozen oranges at the store yesterday. Okay, type it back to me. And so they have to listen to it, and that's good if they're at a relatively lower skill level. And then I can see exactly what they're hearing, and then I can type the correct answer to them so that they get an instant feedback channel of what they're missing when they're hearing it. Another thing we can do is sometimes I'll type it out and I'll say, can you repeat this back to me and say it back to me? Sometimes if their level's quite low, I might ask them to see if they can say it back in Spanish, either vocally or with texting. So I might say like, I bought a dozen oranges yesterday. Now, dime lo que significa en español. And so they'll have to kind of try to figure it out and write it back to me in Spanish so I can kind of see what they're grabbing out of that. So it's actually a super effective language learning a tool in that way. But the part of the reason it's super effective is because everybody has it. And so the pandemic really made this very clear. And that's why ultimately we were trying to figure out the best way to connect with our students we could no longer meet in classroom spaces. And we knew we wanted to get them to Zoom because all their kids were using Zoom or some other kind of model to connect with the school and to other resources. They were informationally isolated during the pandemic. So people were literally like, they didn't have food. They didn't know that they weren't going to get kicked out. They didn't have access to money. There was money that they had available to them, but didn't know where it was. And so that's why we started the one-on-one program of matching volunteers to non-native English speakers here locally, partly to practice English, but also just to make sure they weren't isolated, both socially, and also from resources. So it became really clear within 2 weeks that like we were going to have to switch to WhatsApp. Why? Because the digital divide that existed for most immigrants and refugees, particularly Spanish speakers with relatively low education levels, there's no divide with WhatsApp. And I was like, I'd rather teach English speakers how to use WhatsApp than try to teach 160,000 Spanish speakers how to use email better, or how to use a computer that they don't have. So it actually everything made sense. And I was really validated by some of the best immigrant refugee, community-based language learning programs in the United States. They were putting out some like virtual ESL program stuff and like best practices and some really great materials out there that I'd love to share with people. It's a little bit different when you're working with educated folks in other countries rather than working with folks with relatively low education in the United States. But the same principles are true. And they're just like, we're doing everything in WhatsApp now, like even if you pass a Zoom link, it's better to pass it in in WhatsApp anyway, because then they just click on it and it pops open Zoom on their screen, and they don't have to remember a complicated login. They don't have to try to enter in a 97-digit, password. Like it's just all right there. So all the things that you mentioned, are things that are really active for us now in just a different shape.
Oh, yeah.
Something I think that one of the webinars that you were just touching on, a great point that they made in those is part of the reason that voice memos can be so popular abroad is that not every language has a keyboard, let alone a written system that goes with it. So that's something I'd always taken for granted. That is a really cool feature of WhatsApp.
Claudia, you were going to comment a second ago.
Oh yeah, I was going to comment on some other features that WhatsApp has been creating and implementing. So for example, as you were saying, WhatsApp Web is a life changer. Just because, sometimes I have to type out longer messages, and I rather just type it out from my computer. And it's in documents that I want to attach from my computer and send them via WhatsApp, presentations, PDFs, whatever. It's just easier. And WhatsApp Web really can change that outlook. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention is yes, you have, I think so many people have been using WhatsApp, have been forced to use WhatsApp for other things now that perhaps they didn't use. Perhaps before you were using it just to, keep communication with friends. Now you're using it for classes, for work more so than before. And I think that in that sense, for example, one thing that I want to talk about is WhatsApp Business, right? Which is this other brand of WhatsApp, which is you have to have a separate phone number for WhatsApp Business in order to attach it to it, right? But WhatsApp Business has really nice features in the sense that, you can put, email that you can be contacted at, you can put working hours, you can put your location, you can put a short description of what your business does. And then there are other features like you can send pre-written messages, so from 9 to 5, you will get me, but after 5, you will get a message. It's like, whoa, these are after office hours. Like, please contact us back tomorrow at 9, or expect a reply tomorrow by 9, right? So that makes it easier again to work with people, because sometimes I will say WhatsApp can be very invasive, right? Because people know that you're connected all the time. Sometimes I have people writing to me at 11 p.m., right? And I'm like, not the time, right? Unlike an email where you can just put that off and it doesn't ring. With WhatsApp it does, right? So in that sense, sometimes it can be a little bit invasive, and that's why WhatsApp Business for me has been great, because I can mute that, I can put schedules, I can put the hours I work at, I can pre-written messages, and that works great. And if you're talking about businesses, you can even put catalogs. You can do other things. It doesn't have that many more features, I would say, but I think they're working with it. I wish, honestly, during this pandemic, WhatsApp has been the go-to for schools. I wish WhatsApp had created WhatsApp School. I don't know, that it had other features, maybe include surveys. Who knows? Maybe they'll do it because they'll see that there's this huge need for more tools within WhatsApp. So hopefully. But so far, I found that, the added things like WhatsApp Web and WhatsApp Business have really made my life that much easier, have made me more accessible with students, or whoever I'm working with, and has allowed me to better organize myself.
I would be so great if I could make little polls and then people just...
We need to send this to Facebook.
Oh man, that's great. Sarah was asking about if it's free. I don't know if it is. Is it?
Oh, yeah. It is free.
WhatsApp for Business? Wow.
Yeah, it's like getting a WhatsApp. You just it's a different icon. Instead of the phone, you get a little B, and the color is blue. It's kind of bluish when you are in the interface. And the other thing is that you have to connect it to another phone number. But the good thing is that, for example, my phone allows for 2 SIM cards. So I have 2 phone numbers in this phone. So one is connected to my personal WhatsApp and the other is connected to my work WhatsApp. So that's how I do it. However, if my phone didn't have 2 SIM cards, I can download both apps, and I just need to put the SIM card that I'm linking to my WhatsApp Business in another phone and get the code. You know how they send you a code to prove that you're using the message? And I just put that code on my phone, and then I can have both apps because they're separate apps, right? So that's another nice thing, that you can have both and you can separate both of them, and it just makes life that much easier in terms of organizing and separating, church and state in a way, like private work life.
So this is kind of interesting. I was thinking, I don't want to get another number though, but actually I have a tablet that I'm working on right now, which is connected to a cell phone tower, and it has its own phone number. So I already have another phone number and I use it for business. And then the way that would work is I connect this number to WhatsApp Business, but then can I use WhatsApp Web with the WhatsApp Business? But I just
Yes.
have to like scan the QR code for I have to kind of switch back and forth.
I mean, the way I do it is that I have two browsers. So my Chrome, I have my personal WhatsApp, and on my Edge, that is the Windows one, I have the WhatsApp Business. So that's easier because otherwise you would have to log in, log out, and just change, switch every now and then. Versus with this, what I do is just two browsers, and that makes life that much easier. Also, just turn off one browser when I'm not working during the weekends, and forget about it. And then just sit down on the first hours and just start typing messages and replying to it. But yeah, you already have another phone number, then I would say like you definitely should get a WhatsApp Business. You can get it with your icon, and then and again, I feel like in your business card, if you have a WhatsApp number and you're working with international people, like seeing the WhatsApp logo makes it that much less intimidating to connect with you. Like, oh, hi, how are you? I need more information. That's so, and using, smiley emojis and whatnot makes it that much easier. So having, I think, a WhatsApp logo and number with an international audience can do wonders for your outreach.
It's for being marketable abroad.
Yeah.
Not just abroad, but actually, I mean, here, because so many immigrant refugee communities use WhatsApp and they're already familiar with that because that's where they learned that. And so for that, it's a signal to them that like we know what's up, right? We know how to communicate in a way that's going to be less intimidating for them, rather than the kind of the sense of a text, which people use a lot here too. But I think when they see that, they'll think, oh, this person probably knows, something, knows how we do it,
Familiar, yeah. And that's the other thing, especially I would say if you're talking about immigrants that have just arrived to the United States or they're first generation, then they're more likely to feel more comfortable with WhatsApp, right? And just passing along information and everything, you can send you can have a PDF already of all the info of your organization and just send it to them. And it's easier for them to find it, to share it with someone else, because it's just easy to handle, right? So if you already have another phone number, I would say, Patrick, what are you waiting for?
Well, it is. I mean, it's a little complicated. Look at Santiago just brought it all together. They know what's up because they know what's up. That was the name of this. So yeah, right. Anyway, that's a joke, that we make, but actually, it's like really true. But the part of the problem is, unfortunately, so there's some people use Line in some countries, and then in China it's WeChat. WeChat, by the way, isn't nowhere near as good as WhatsApp. It's really hard. I feel like it's really hard to get connected, and then once it's stuck to your number, like you can never unstick it from that number, and it's really, really strange how that. It seems strange to me. I haven't been able to make it work very well, but that's the only drawback for me, is that I kind of wish WhatsApp ruled the world, but maybe it's better that they don't.
No, I mean, it depends also. I mean, and WeChat is gonna, starting this Sunday, right? People are no longer going to be able to download WeChat, and then after November 12th, WeChat will stop working in the US. So,
I didn't hear that. Is that a TikTok related thing?
Yeah, TikTok and WeChat are getting the same. Yeah. So,
well, maybe that's why, because Trump and Zuckerberg have been talking, and that's exactly what is going to happen. WeChat or WhatsApp wants to rule the world. That's probably what it is.
I mean, not to say I don't think we're going to start using WeChat in Latin America anytime soon. But I mean, yeah, it's it's an entire debate on on national security and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, there are other apps similar to WhatsApp, like you were saying, maybe Signal or like Telegram now is becoming popular here in Bolivia.
Mhm.
But I would say, WhatsApp still if you have Telegram, that's good, but you still
Oh.
right? Because if you don't have WhatsApp, how are people going to communicate with you? They're going to pick up the phone and call you. That's not going to happen.
Actually, Jacqueline, who's been listening, she chose not to participate with her camera on, but she just made a really interesting comment in the session chat. She used to use WeChat, and I didn't really know this. It comes with instant translation if it comes in another language. That's pretty cool. I didn't realize that. So I'm gonna start looking for that. And I'm glad I've already downloaded WeChat. Now I didn't realize it was going to be disappeared. Fascinating.
Yeah, and as you were saying, Sarah, yeah, it's a central part in China because WeChat is not just WhatsApp, right? It's social media. It's kind of like Instagram, I think, and it also has you can pay bills. Yeah, exactly. So it has a whole other range of functions, which I don't know. I'm wondering if Facebook at some point is gonna get on with this and start like because they haven't made that many updates to WhatsApp, and WhatsApp Business was not that promoted either. I found out by mistake almost.
Yeah.
So I wonder when they're gonna do more updates to the versions that we're currently handling.
I think WhatsApp for Business is owned by the original WhatsApp maker.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so it's not owned by
Yeah.
Facebook, which is also kind of
Oh, really?
interesting and cool. Yeah, I think so. Because when Wendy mentioned it to me, I went and looked it up, and I was kind of trying to figure out if I should do that. And it looked like it was like the original owners on a separate page. I could be wrong about that. Wendy, you use a lot of WhatsApp for delivery. What is it? It says by Facebook then. Okay, all right.
It's on the Facebook.
What is that, Wendy? What do you mean? You use a lot of WhatsApp for delivery?
For ordering, like for restaurant. So for example, and that's what's nice because in WhatsApp Business you can have a catalog, and for restaurants that means you can have a menu. So you can check the menu and then send.
Sorry.
Yeah, we sucked you in. We sucked you in.
Oh no, I was just listening to you guys and yeah, like here WhatsApp has helped a lot of like new entrepreneurs and new small businesses because you don't need to be part of a paid app to sell your products. So you just you set up a fan page which is free, and then you put your WhatsApp number, and then people can order from WhatsApp. And actually on Facebook, I don't know if you guys talked about this, but there's like an option so you can put your WhatsApp there, and so you like somebody is in the fan page and they press this link and it goes directly to your WhatsApp, so it's easier to enter and send like or order something, whatever it is, if it's food or any like anything. Like for example, my husband and I work we have a small entrepreneurship business, like that's called it's with we work with leather, like handcraft, and so that's all we do. And people just write us on WhatsApp. He makes phone calls, WhatsApp calls, like video calls, and he's like, oh, these are the type of leathers we have, what do you like, and which one you like, and what would you like in your design, or blah blah blah. So it's very personalized. And after that, we just, ask them, like, do you want us, are you picking it up, or you want a delivery, And so, and we use this for everything. And a lot of small businesses use it. Well, and also big businesses use it as well. Even banks now, like in Bolivia, all banks have a WhatsApp account.
The government.
It's really good because you ask something, you don't need to go to the bank or make a call, because sometimes it's like, you're hanging there like waiting for hours. So this is a lot easier, faster, and for me, at least with my bank, I have everything there, so it's really helpful. And I wanted to mention something else. Well, because you guys mentioned something about the government, or I don't know what we had to do with an application in the United States. The thing is that right now, I don't know if you heard about Evo Morales being you say pedophile?
What?
Yes. And so they discovered these WhatsApp messages with a minor I mean, the girl is now, I think, probably like 19 or something. But the conversation started when she was 14. So there are a lot of pictures and conversations. And so every time she writes him, and he replies with a call, you know, and there are like more than 300 or I don't know how many like messages. And this is, you know, how this is what they're using, because they found the girl going somewhere. And so the police was there, and, you know, they took the phone and they discovered all these things, and now they're using it, you know, to start a process, a legal process, and I hope they're successful. And thank you, WhatsApp, you know, because he is a horrible person, and this was very useful.
But at the same time, it's like WhatsApp. It's more they had access to her phone, and that's how they did it. So it wasn't like a leak of security from WhatsApp, although they're having
they had access to her phone.
Yeah.
But that means that you have to be careful, and it has happened to me. And I remember, Patrik, you know, when you also had to send me your credit card, so we could use, you know, put the ads on Facebook. And so I was like, and you did the right thing. Like, Patrik sent me a message, a voice message, then I deleted it. So, you know, because even though they say it's really secure, you have to be careful. And sometimes I had to, you know, send like important information, so then I deleted it right. So we don't have any problem with that.
Yeah.
With the delete, by the way, you have to delete it within 15 minutes, I think. Otherwise, it stays.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Like, because I wanted to delete a message like from a while ago that I sent to a friend that I never delivered. And I tried and it wouldn't let me. And then I checked, and apparently you have a time limit.
Wow.
So just to keep in mind, especially if you're working with sensitive information, that's probably something that you should keep in the radar. Now, I am sorry, but I have to go.
Yeah, there was a 1-hour session, and Claudia, I really appreciate it. This was fun. It went by fast. It's fun to be on stage, but it's actually great to just like have a conversation about stuff. So that's pretty cool. So I learned a lot.
Me too. It was nice hearing your experiences and whatnot, because again, I think it puts me on the other end and understanding, for example, voice notes and, you know, the typing and being able to find it. Something that I have.
Patrik.
What I know, Wendy, I knew Wendy, you were listening, because she's busy.
I couldn't answer then, but
I also know you know.
Now I understand.
But now you understand.
I was like, Patrick's so helpful, because with the group, because once I remember I sent this message, it was kind of like long, and he was like, he typed everything like, when he says this, and I was like, oh.
Yeah. So now you at least know, but you don't need to change, but just if you know that there's a way that I'm using it, just like you were saying, Claudia, that different people use different channels and you kind of learn to pick it up, but we're coming from a different cultural perspective and also just different systems. So it's not always easy to know what that reference point is. I know that it's easier for you because you're rushing around somewhere, you know, and just to like speak it into the phone. But it's
when
also
you're
been
driving, especially.
Yeah. But when it's been really great with us, and I know you have to go, but just as a kind of tie up, you know, because we're working together with lots of clients now, it's been really cool for Ciudad Mundo and PPT, where we're able to work together really easily, and I can communicate right away with all of the Ciudad Mundo folks, and it's just like seamless for them. And so I'm just really excited about the possibilities of individualized language learning programs that we're kind of building. They're very intensive to kind of track and create, but using WhatsApp like streamlines a lot of that work. So anyway.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I definitely think we can get more creative and open new channels to work and like implement it and communicate. Again, I think the pandemic, as horrible as it has been, it has also opened, it has forced us to look at other options and use more thoroughly these tools that we've had for the longest time, right? And rethink about how we use them. So yeah, I think WhatsApp is definitely one of those where we're learning more. And, you know, I'm glad that you were able to invite me in order to share these experiences. Thank you. Well, I'm going to leave. Bye, guys.
See you later, guys.
Bye.
Thank you, Claudia. Adios.
I'm going back to the welcome booth.
See you there.